This next article from the New York Post, Joe Magoo Biden calls for nationwide mask mandate. Former president who was picked because, former vice president Joe Magoo Biden, who was picked because he was white, called for an immediate nationwide mask mandate for the next 3 months, providing few specifics, but saying the measures could save 40,000 people's lives. Quote, I hope we learned the lesson. Hope the president has learned the lesson. But again, this is not about Democrat, Republican, or independent. This is about saving lives. He said during a briefing in Wilmington, Delaware. Quote, so it's just institute a mask mandate nationwide starting immediately, and estimate that we'll be saving 40,000 lives in the next 3 months once we get that done. And so the problem with this whole idea that we're saving lives from a mask mandate is here's the COVID death rates graph. And so you can see here from this graph that about half of the people who've died from COVID, and these numbers are a couple of weeks out of date. Yes, 60,000 more people have died, but this sample size has over 100,000 people, so it's going to be the same percentages. It's just statistics in a nutshell. So you'll see that about half the people that died were over the average age of death. You will also see from this graph that if you're under the age of 45, that you have if you're over the age of 45, you have a 38 times more greater chance of dying from COVID. So this means that for young people, they have very little risk of dying from COVID. COVID is deadly for one reason only, because it's a new virus and you have not had it. So for the young people, if they put off getting COVID until they're older, they have a higher chance of dying. Also, too, 1/3 of the deaths here from COVID were also people with pre-existing conditions such as cancer, which kills approximately 600,000 people per year, and diabetes, which kills approximately 85,000 people per year. So if you take that into account, now I don't know what percentage of people were over the average age of death and had a pre-existing condition. I don't know that. But we must assume that that the people in this region here, that those people, a large percent of them had pre-existing conditions, or they had a condition that was not known at the time of death. And so for young people, there's 6 different strands of COVID. One of them is very deadly. The other 6 are not, the other 5 are not deadly. So if you're young, you want to get the other strands of COVID, the 5 that aren't deadly, before you get the strand of COVID that is deadly, because it's going to mutate and then it could make a second wave. The evidence for that is very little, that there's a second wave coming. But in the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic that pretty much put an end to the First World War, that had multiple waves, and again, it mutated in China. So this would be the second pandemic that China brought to us in the past 100 years. Thank you for the Wu flu and the Kung flu, China. And if anyone here is listening from China or Hong Kong, you should overthrow Winnie the Pooh and bring democracy to Hong Kong. And don't forget about Taiwan. I mean, those people are struggling too. They all should overthrow the dictator Winnie the Pooh and bring democracy to Asia, because those people are awesome and they deserve democracy. And Zinni the Pooh is a jerk. And all those people are totally crazy Nazis. And so the other thing that they're just completely discounting here about the death rates is the suicide rate. There's about 50,000 people who commit suicide every single year. And when the pandemic lockdown started, the suicide rate peaked 356%. If that rate continues over a year, which is probably not, then that would cause over 200,000 deaths by suicide. So when you force people to wear masks, it causes depression. For rape victims, it can cause them to be traumatized, because in the past, people have put, when they've been raped, they've had something put over their mouth to protect it, to stop them from screaming. So women who have been raped are being traumatized by the mask. As well, deaf people are being traumatized by the mask, because they require seeing your mouth so that they can interpret your words. So not having this mask mandate has a lot of consequences that go along with it. And there's absolutely zero evidence, none at all, period, none, that wearing a mask reduces the number of COVID deaths. Absolutely not. The mortality rate is based, there's a lot, all of the statistics that we've been dealing with have been based off of junk data, because we didn't have the data and then they got it. And then 86% of scientists vote for Democrats, and they look at most of the data through a political lens. And so everything that has been coming out of these people's mouth is not trustworthy anymore. I'm an engineer and I know quite a bit about virology, and I don't like to say that. I absolutely don't like to say that, but the fact is that it's true. I debunk fake news on this show all the time. And this is coming from dogma, from people who are caught up on the doctrine of diversity, and they are obsessed with being the white savior. And they think they know everything because they studied it in school. And they think that because they saw something kind of similar in school, that they know what they're talking about, and that if you don't trust the science, that you're now crazy, and then you're now a threat, and they have to deal with you like a threat. You're one of these science deniers if you don't trust everything that they say. What you have to understand is that when these people go home, they are popping pills, drinking booze like a madman, and they are totally psychotic. These people are crazy. They're going to be like my sister. Trust me, my sister is a scientist. And trust me, my sister is a fucking lunatic. And if you actually listen to what my sister says based off of her scientific evidence that she brings you, you are fucking stupid. Trust me, she is not a good source. You cannot trust anything that comes out of her mouth. In fact, the last time I heard about my sister, my father had passed away in Mexico, and the people who were at the funeral called and said, "What you have to deal with your sister. She's down here drinking all the tequila, and she's blackout drunk, and she's causing all these problems." You're like, okay, these are the kinds of people that you're trusting now, trusting every single thing that these people say, and then as it turns out, they're totally batshit fucking crazy, dude. Oh, Mr. Magoo, Mr. Magoo. This next article from NBC, when Biden picked Kamala Harris for VP because she's black, they raised $34.2 million in a day and a half. This is why Mr. Magoo picked Kamala Harris. This is why Barack Obama picked Joe Magoo Biden. And it's because the black man couldn't win without a white dude. And the white dude can't win without a black woman because people just vote for Democrats because they're going to take from the white man and give it to the African Americans and the Wham-Man and the Kleenex, the Latinx, because the white man, the white savior, said that the Latinos cannot say Latino. No, that is sexist. No, that has been canceled. Now your language is now defunct. There is no la or los. It is X. This next article from Newsweek. Kamala the Snitch Harris, Joe Magoo Biden, had the audacity to select a black woman for VP fic. During the first sit-down interview between Democrats and the presumptive vice president candidate, U.S. Senator Kamala the Snitch Harris praised running mate Joe Magoo Biden for his audacity in selecting her for the role. Joe Magoo Biden had the audacity to choose a black woman to be his running mate, end quote. She said during a 30-minute conversation at the 19th Representatives Summit 19th Represents Summit put on by the 19th Texas-based nonprofit news outlet. How incredible is that? And what a statement about Joe Magoo Biden, that he decided that he was going to do that, and that I think it was about breaking one of the most substantial barriers that exist in our country, and that he made that decision at whatever risk that brings. And so apparently Kamala Harris doesn't know what audacity means. What does audacity mean? Fearless, daring, intrepidity. Bold or insistent headlessness of restraint as those imposed by prudence, property and conviction, and the active instance of intrepidly or insolent headlessness. So when you say somebody had the audacity to do that, you say that's not like a good thing. Like it means that you had what is the one? So what is it? What are these insolent? Audacious, rude, disrespectful, imprudent. What's imprudent mean again? Offensively bold, disrespectful, shameless. So this gets down to the entire problem that Obama started here whenever he started pandering to the African Americans and the Wham-Man and the Kleenex, and they made they made a calculation, an error in judgment. And man, why do I keep closing that? They made a bet based on the projected immigration scenario. So here you can see a chart. Let me zoom in. This is from the U.S. Census Bureau. U.S. population 1900 to 2016 and population projections from 2017 to 2060 based on immigration scenario. And so the Democrats, who are controlled by California, the sanctuary state, that the state that's been pushing the woke identity politics and preventing us from enforcing our immigration policies by labeling the white man as racist and far right for not harboring illegal immigrants. They made this based off of the projections that basically our birth rate is dipping. So all of the Native Americans. So when I say Native Americans, I don't mean an American Indian. An Amerindian is one of the Native Americans. There are no humans that are native to America. Humans evolved in Africa and they were transported here by humans, and that makes them all not natural. Yes, you heard that right. This is actually our country too. If you don't like that, you're going to have to kill all of us. And we have 88%, white people have 88% of the guns, and most of those belong to Republicans. And we vastly outnumber you. And that would be absolutely crazy, genocidal serial killer status to even think that you would even want to take us out like that. But we're not allowed to talk about our birth rates. We're not. Each woman, in order to replace your population, has to have 2.1 children. If you don't, your population goes down. And the white people have a birth rate of 1.6, as well, about the same for the African Americans, and the Asians have a birth rate of about only children. And the Latinos in the US have about the same birth rate as the white people. All of the Native Americans have the same. And when I say Native American, I mean somebody who is born in America who is stereotypical American, not an Amerindian who is one type of American Indian. So their whole game here is they're banking on 2/3 of the immigrants voting for Democrats and on the white people going along with giving them everything they want because of woke identity politics and shaming the white man as bad. And the reason why they're doing this is because they figured out that they could do it, and they figured out they could get whatever they want by shaming the white man as bad and by making it popular to take from him, because this then allows them to come up in their social media world while the white man goes down the social hierarchy. And as long as they just replace the white people with immigrants by keeping our birth rate low, by institutionalized feminism, because if you put off having a child until your 30s, you're not going to have a baby. Probably not going to have a child. And then your genes are going to die off. But if a man puts off having a baby to work until his 30s, then he will have a wife and he will have a family because he can afford to have one. One is the ideal case scenario where the man works hard, delays gratification, has the family and the wife and the kid. The other is the worst case scenario where your people die off and the only way you can replace your employees is with Latinos. And now you see exactly what they're doing is in California, where these batshit lunatic ivory tower liberal Democrats are coming to, like the worst of the worst. These people from California are lunatics, like Nancy Pelosi. Lunatic, absolute lunatic. They institutionalize this stuff. To them, this stuff is like just normal to like prevent us from enforcing our immigration policies and to cancel anyone who says anything in opposition, prevent them from getting jobs in the workplace, label them as far right. Now you can see they can't do this to me because they've already canceled me. I've already been canceled. You cannot actually cancel someone twice. It's actually not possible. Once you have been canceled once, then the next people just know that, well, he's been canceled. And generally, most people really just don't care. But in today's woke identity politics, where it's popular to attack white privilege, to come up in the social hierarchy because you don't have any other merits that make you worth hiring or being around, Uh, what about this story? Sorry, I'm going off on a little tangent. So Kamala the Snitch Harris, the one who was involved in the snitch scandal in California, you should look that up because there's a reason why she's called the snitch. So she says Biden had the audacity to hire her. And so this is, it is very audacious. It's very rude. It's very disrespectful to only focus on the needs of African Americans and women and Kleenex, because 72% of this country is white, and the Democrats, they're completely banking. Their entire political model revolves around white people's birth rate staying low for a long period of time, and us just giving up everything and not sticking up for us, not having any sort of spine, and being shamed by being called racist and being canceled, into giving everything to the Democrats so that they can control California and boost the number of U.S. House seats they have by making California a sanctuary state so that they can harbor illegal immigrants. And they want to do this because 2/3 of these immigrants are voting for Democrats. And so it's the only way that they can stay in control, is because they're working on such a fine line. Like they're not actually, they don't have a permanent control over there. They're control. They could lose control at any time. So that's their entire business model revolves around staying in control. And this is why they are the biggest sleazeball dirtbag pieces of shit out there. Because these are the people that are running this stuff. Like Kamala the Snitch Harris is from California. She's an ivory tower liberal. She'll tell you anything you want to hear to get you to like the post, watch the ad, buy the product, and vote for her. And the only way these people can come up is through the public employee unions and through positions as the Attorney General, which is the Attorney General is the political job for the lawyers who want to get into politics. That's the hot job. I know politicians. A recent politician friend of mine has been running for Attorney General. Thank God she did not win. But these people that come up out of California, these are the biggest dirtbags that you could come across. Like, what the hell? Like, I can't even make this shit up because these people are so lunatic here in California. You can't even make this shit up, what they're doing, because it's like, there's so many details in it that it's definitely factual. It's not just like a theory that they're trying to not enforce their border policy to maintain political control. That's obviously a fact. Everything that political parties do is for one specific reason only. It's to gain control and maintain control. This is how political parties work. If you think anything else, you're a fool. In this next article from the Daily Mail, Joe Magoo Biden mocks Trump for requesting a mail-in ballot at Mar-a-Lago, despite the president claiming the postal system will collapse and the election will be a fraudulent mess. So let me explain to you about the fraudulent vote by mail system in Oregon. People claim there's no voter fraud in Oregon, but this is absolutely 100% a lie. In fact, our elections are just completely fraudulent. It's a one-party rule state. The Democrats have taken over. People don't focus on politics. Nobody was paying any attention to politics. I live in Eugene, Oregon. And I used to think vote by mail was completely legit. I would argue to the teeth that it's completely legit and that it can be safer. But there are compelling reasons as to why vote by mail is 100% fraudulent in every single situation, and it's illegal. The first of it being is that when you fill out ballots, you're sitting around with a group of people in your living room filling them out. Some people will have control over other people in that group. That person, or the people who are under control, will be forced to vote for the person who is controlling them in order to avoid them being angry. And also, sometimes the person who is in control will fill out the ballot, and the person who is under control will sign the ballot. Another example is when a person who lives with an elderly person with dementia fills out the elderly person's ballot without them knowing, and then tells them that they forgot to sign their ballot. At that time, the elderly person with dementia just signs the ballot, thinking that it's just legit. Another example with fraudulent vote by mail elections is that someone requests a duplicate ballot who lives in your house. You can take two ballots and you can actually cut them apart. You can take the person's ballot, they fill it out, they sign it. You can then take their ballot and then you can use their signature to forge their signature on the new ballot. Another form of voter fraud in Oregon is when people steal ballots. So when ballots are mailed to everyone, they're mailed out all at the same time. This is the key. People fail to bring in time into the equation. So when people know there are a lot of ballots available to steal, people will go and steal ballots and they'll throw them away to prevent someone from voting for a specific candidate that they don't want them to vote for. Or they might actually just fill out the ballot fraudulently and actually sign it. Or they might take the ballot and they might take it to a place where they're not allowed to submit the ballot at. This happens a lot. It actually happens on college campuses too. And so what you have to understand is there's millions of people with Trump derangement syndrome who lividly hate Republicans. They want to kill Republicans. They think that cops are fascists. Republicans are KKK. They are certifiably crazy. They're lunatics. And these people can disrupt an election. They can, in New Jersey, in one election there this year, there was 19% of the ballots were disqualified. There were up to 40% of the ballots in some precincts were disqualified. And in Oregon, up to 2.5% to 5% of ballots have been found to be fraudulent in the past in Oregon counties. These are all very compelling reasons as to why voter mail-in voting is 100% fraud. But you also miss the absolute nail in the coffin to the argument is that you have a right to speak on public property. If everyone else if the majority of people in the United States have historically voted at the polling stations, they have historically also spoken with citizens about the laws at the polling places, which are public property. This means that if you eliminate in-person polling, this violates your constitutional right to free speech because it abridges the times, places, and manners where you can speak on public property. Me, as a citizen of Eugene, Oregon, I cannot go to a polling place where the rest of the citizens are at to engage in free speech on public property because it's all mail-in voting. The reason why this whole claim that Joe Magoo Biden mocking Trump for asking for a what do they call it? Absentee ballot. This is stupid. This shows you how stupid Mr. Magoo is. This dude is bozo, absolute bozo, man. The absentee ballot is far more safe than the mail-in ballot. First off, if you have a small amount of absentee ballots, if you have a small amount of fraud on a small amount of people, this is very, very much so smaller amount of number of fraud than if you had all mail-in ballots with the same amount of fraud, right? So let's say we had 5% absentee ballots, 5% of them were fraud, right? That's 0.05 times 0.05. That's 0.0025%. No, 0.025 fraud. Compare that to the other one, which is 5% fraud. You're like, okay, I want the 0.025 fraud, or the 0.25 fraud, right? Because that was, let me do the math again. You had 5% times 5%, 0.05 times 0.05. So there's 2 zeros, but we got to multiply by 100. So it's 0.25% fraud. As opposed to 5. One is very small, one is a lot bigger. Also, 2, because people don't know when the absentee ballot is coming, because in the mail-in ballot system, all the ballots come at the same time. So you can go around and steal all the ballots. This is a lot harder to do in the absentee ballot because you don't know whether or not the person has an absentee ballot. So obviously, Mr. Magoo is an idiot. Definitely should not vote for him. If you do, you are about the same intelligence level as Mr. Magoo. And if you do vote for Trump, you're not black. So here in this next article from Newsweek, Trump says 20% of mail-in ballots are lost by the post office. Donald Trump said on Saturday that the U.S. Post Service lost 20% of the mail-in ballots, describing it as universal voting as catastrophic. Speaking at a press conference, Trump, the king of memes, repeatedly condemned mail-in voting while praising absentee voting. Quote, again, absentee voting is great. I'm an absentee voter because I requested. I got, and then I sent in my vote. So that's how it works very well. That's what we've had. But now they want to send millions and millions of ballots and then see what's happening. They're being lost. They're being discarded. They're finding them in piles. It's going to be catastrophic. A catastrophe, the king of memes said. If you look at what's happening in New York and Virginia and various other places, it's a catastrophe. They're losing 20% of the votes. Nobody knows what's happened. So we're going to see what happens. But I do say universal mail-in voting is going to be a catastrophic. It's going to make our country a laughingstock of the world. You can send out millions of ballots. Look at these tests. Look, you've seen them. There are many. Just look at New York. Look at New Jersey. Look at the catastrophe in New Jersey. And New Jersey had more than just Patterson. Patterson was the town in New Jersey with the 19% disqualified votes. Look at what's going on in Virginia. Look at what's going on in mail-in voting. It's a disgrace. He continued. And so the leftists are trying to paint Donald Trump as this totalitarian dictator because he's proving through the removal of the voting mail sorting machines at the post office that somebody can actually interfere with the election. People think he's doing this because he's a dictator. No, he's proving that this is problematic through actually just interfering with the process legally because he's legally allowed. He controls the post office. You want to do mail-in ballots on an election where the person who is running the show also is in control of the system that sends you the mail-in ballots. This is obviously not legit in any way, shape, or form. And this pattern repeats itself over and over with Donald Trump. The left they flip out anytime they hear something from Donald Trump that is not in line with the doctrine of diversity and does not endorse the Wafrican Americans, Wham-In, and the Kleenex. This next article from Newsweek, 50% of Joe Biden voters are voting because he's not Trump, the new poll says. New poll suggests that most of those who plan to vote for Joe Magoo Biden are doing so because he's not Trump. Majority of respondents in the Pew Research poll Thursday said they were likely to vote for Biden, 53% compared to 43% of President Donald Trump. However, 56% said their reason for supporting Biden was that he's not Trump. And only 19% of Trump supporters cite their opposition for Mr. Magoo. A 2016 poll from the firm found that 33% of Trump supporters were voting for their candidate in opposition of former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, while 32% of supporters of Clinton opposed Trump. I don't know. I'm not going to continue going on in that. This wasn't the one that I wanted. There's another one. Well, I lost it. I was going to show you a fake news poll from Marist polls, which are absolutely not legit. They said that Trump was behind 11% in the polling, but the problem with the poll is that they polled 33% of the respondents were Latinos. So if you go by the rates of the percentages of Latino voters and the percentages of white voters, it would actually put them neck and neck. And don't trust anything from Marist polls. I wish I had the article so I could show you. I'm sorry about that. You should donate to the show. Share this on social media so that we can hire another person so that these details don't get missed. But Marist is a liberal arts college in New York. And so if you ever hear anything from Marist polls, it's absolute garbage. And NPR is absolute fake news garbage that should be defunded. We need to defund NPR. They absolutely have no place with government funds. I do not agree with their political agenda. I think that it is opposed to my politics, and I do not want my tax money going to fund NPR. They regularly use Marist polls as if they are a fact, when indeed they are fake news polls. Here in this